7:15. The time is 7:22. Call the meeting to order, and we have a 7:15 appointment with Cemetery Commissioner Bill Gaynor to discuss the cemetery budget. And unfortunately, Bill is not able to be here. Neither is Peter DeZell, so what I'm going to do is come up with a motion to form a task force and then ask for approval of the budget based upon the motion. But what I want to do first is if there are any questions or comments on the Cemetery Commission budget, to air those or at least get those into the general record. Yes, Janet.
2 comments. So in last week's discussion, there was comments about rally ready mix being used to place the headstones, and it sounds like excavating is also associated with that. That to me seems like it should be part of the revolving fund and not town expenses. It should be covered by the cost associated with people paying for that service. And secondly, I think, and I don't know if it's for us or how it's decided, but I think that the revolving fund should be used first and brought down to a certain level, whatever, maybe up down to $5,000 or some amount, and then expenses and or salary should come out of the town's budget. It's just my opinion. I think the revolving fund has a very high balance, and I'm not sure what the purpose is.
Mr. Chairman, I looked at that as well, and it looks like well, the past couple of years in FY 14-15, they've been only spending roughly, I think it was 20, let's see, $2,744 roughly a year, and they're looking for $5,000 this year. If you look at the revolving account, it looks like their expenses are roughly $5,000. My question was all these numbers here, if they were actually salary costs or they were actual expenses, but I can't get that answer tonight. But to me, it looks like there's such a balance in the revolving account that we could easily reduce the expenses on the budget down to 0 and use up the $16,000 first, because they're not going to be spending anywhere near $5,000 for expenses, and then level fund the salaries, because I still think that the revolving account is with a balance of $16,000 can handle any of the 2 line items that they have.
Okay.
I think it can even handle some of the wages, because I think some of the wages, according to last week's conversation, were associated with conversations with people to make arrangements for burials and things like that. I don't know if there are stipulations on what the revolving fund can or cannot be used for, but if it can be used for wages, I think that we draw down that till it's at a level and then go to the town line items.
Yeah, I think we would like to see the wages come out of the wages line, even though it's part of, we'll say, the burial expense. I don't know how it's done elsewhere, but
I looked at their wage worksheet, and I really couldn't make heads or tails of it. I mean, I see
right.
They have 20 under the hours per week, but in the bottom it says 1 commissioner works 20 hours per week seasonal. So I don't know what seasonal meant, so I said, okay, let me figure out that that would be for 5 months, and it may not be 5 months. And if you do $404 per week at 5 months, it comes out to about $8,000. And then and they said last week, I think Bill said that there was roughly 35 burials a year. And if you did that by 3 commissioners and they each were there for 4 hours at 20 $20 an hour, that's another $8,500. So between just the commissioners alone, we're talking about $16,000. And then assuming, again, the seasonal help, I was figuring out, I wanted to know how many hours they work per day during the season. So I took it conservatively and said, okay, they work 4 hours per day for 10 weeks, because they said they work for 10 weeks.
Right.
And 3 seasonal laborers at $13.10, 4 hours a day, comes out to roughly $7,800, $7,860. So if you add the commissioner's salary plus the summer help, it comes out to roughly $15,720.
But the seasonal workers don't work only 4 hours a day. They're here, they're mowing all the
Yeah,
things. I
but
mean,
so if it's 8, it's double that.
Yeah.
It's 15,000. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, I was hoping I'd be able to get an answer, and I guess that's really why I think a task force is needed to kind of just see how things are. I mean, we don't want to be cemetery commissioners, and certainly me as a member of the finance committee don't want to dictate what they do. But financially, I think we have a responsibility to set the budget and to have the finances of the cemetery department accountable.
Right.
And I think the only way to do that is to look at the way the structure is. I mean, many, many years ago, when this has been around for 50 years or whatever, the open meeting laws weren't in existence, and a lot of these things have changed. The laws have changed. The commissioners being paid and voting their own salaries and things of that nature, I think, I mean, it's got to be a conflict of interest and some conflict of the law. And the only way to straighten that out is to look at that and maybe have commissioners under, was it Article 4, which is they give them a stipend. And then if the people that are currently commissioners still want to be employees, they should be employees versus commissioners, so that they can earn the salary, but the commissioners would determine how many hours a week they're going to work and set the rates and all this other stuff. That's why I think the task force will bring all that to light, and hopefully it'll be a lot easier, because this budget here, it really was terrible, because even if you look under the wages and you add on Form 2, $14,000 that they list there, the 524 and the 5240, it adds up to 20,524. It doesn't even add up to what they totaled at 20,200.
Right.
So there's just a lot of numbers here that are meaningless.
Yeah, but can I interrupt 1 second? For one thing, what we should do is we should be able to get actual spent-to-date figures. That, you know, and I like to see that in all the budgets that we look at, so we have a better idea than looking at just what's appropriation. Appropriation doesn't mean anything to me, because I don't know what they're gonna spend out of how much is appropriated in that budget.
Well, there's a sheet in
Where?
there that shows as of January,
Right.
and I just
But
did
I'm
rough
saying,
numbers.
yeah, but we're in March right now, so
Yeah.
and we're gonna be in April, tomorrow.
But what I'm
So we
saying,
should-
wages is 84% spent already as of January, so I'm assuming that, you know, the cemetery is gonna open up sometime in May, and there's gonna be May and June expenses there, so that's definitely gonna go into the revolving account. But we just need an explanation on the 16,000, because it's gonna be maybe 25,000, or who knows what it would be. You know, why is that number the way it is? Because it's certainly out of whack with the way the budget was set up. So-
Right. I mean, the way it is now, the hours don't match up. There's too many holes in the figuring, and like you say, you know, I couldn't make sense of anything. The expenses don't match, and you know, there's just too many things that aren't documented, that are not
I mean,
accountable.
Yeah, they should be able to estimate, you know, their estimate should be outlined somehow. I mean, what I did was, when I saw the $16,700 spent already in just labor, I said, okay, what do I think they're gonna need to the end of the year? And I'm assuming that they won't have any seasonal help till July 1st, because they probably hire kids out of school, so there'll be no number.
No. That cemetery will be immaculate for Memorial
Oh, I
Day.
know it will be, but I don't
And there
know.
will be seasonal help.
All right, so then that makes my estimate even worse,
Yeah.
because I said 0 there, and I said, assuming that one commissioner will be working 20 hours for 8 weeks through May and July, that's another $3,200, and then assuming 10 burials between now and July 1st, 3 commissioners, et cetera, there's another $2,400. So if you want to add 1,000 for seasonal help, for example, that would mean they need another $6,000 or $7,000 to get through the end of the year.
But that's
So-
why I think that why they do the appropriations at the end, because they wanna leave themselves open to whatever seasonal, whatever help, because typically April, May, and June are gonna be months that's gonna be very intensive in terms of, doing landscaping or whatever they need, so
Yeah.
that's the reason why I think they've been doing it that way.
But the revolving account is,
You know.
is I think, adequate enough that we should spend a year, basically let it dwindle down and see where, how it's going down, because I don't think it's gonna go away for a few years. So on the town side, we could save maybe on some salary and expenses, just let it come out of the revolving account, so.
I couldn't get their expenses to even
Yeah.
add.
Yeah,
Agree with
I know.
that. Yeah, I
No.
think, I guess they just pull figures out of their hat.
Any other comments?
So I guess the task force, are we gonna send that to the Board of Selectmen and ask them to establish that?
What I was gonna do is come up with a motion. The Finance Committee requests the Board of Selectmen to form a task force to review the Cemetery Commission cost of services and expenses and report in the fall on the outcome. Recommended task force to include a selectman, cemetery commissioner, and finance committee member. And that's what I was coming up with for a motion. Any? Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to, not make the motion, but I think that it's a good idea. I think what we've seen with this budget proves that, they really don't understand what's going on there.
No.
They're struggling. I mean, Bill was sitting here the other night, he didn't even know what you were talking about, trying to get the percentages and everything else put together so we could keep a track of what's going on. The only thing I would caution would be, we don't wanna take all of the money out of the revolving fund, so we kinda wanna keep an eye on that. Depends on what the weather is and the grass growing season and things like that could change from year to year. The big push is gonna be probably at the end of April and early May to get the things ready for Memorial Day. That's the big one.
Yeah.
And once they get through that, then they can kind of slack off a little bit, but it depends on what the weather is. If we get a lot of rain and the grass grows and things like that, then it's gonna be more money. So,
But I think if we can look at what actual expenses are for the last 2 years, we can
absolutely.
probably average it out and say, okay, it might be $5,000 are gonna be taken out of the revolving account. Then it's a question of, do we wanna take 5, or do we wanna keep it a little higher or lower? You know, so.
And it's also what the fees are, so
Mhm.
keep an eye on that. We can kind of maybe go back a couple of 3 years on those and see what the average is for each year, the number of burials and the number of foundations and things they put in. And kind of average that out, and then just kind of the first year, keep an eye on that revolving account to make sure it doesn't go negative.
Does it have a limit as to how much can come out of it?
Yeah,
Yes.
I think, but it's
20?
20,000.
20,000.
Right now, we've only got 16 in it,
Yeah,
so.
so they could run it right down.
Besides the lots that they sell, that money goes into the, half of it goes into the revolving account. What other monies go into the revolving account each year?
Didn't he say opening of graves?
Opening of graves
Opening.
and also foundations.
Foundations?
Yeah,
Okay,
what they do is they charge the customer to put the
Right.
foundation in, and they use Raleigh Ready Mix for the concrete, and they, I don't know if they dig them by hand or whether they use the backhoe to dig the foundation hole, but that's how they work, and then they have another company that comes in with the headstones and sets them.
and do
Yeah.
those items also, like, half goes to the town and half goes to the cemetery
Yes.
commission?
Yeah,
Okay.
of
They're
the
all
things they do.
50%.
Yeah,
Okay.
50% goes into the general fund, and the other half goes to the revolving fund for the cemetery.
Okay.
And the stones are by various companies. It's up to the family
Right.
which company they use
Yeah,
to
they
put the
do
stone in.
their own, person to do the stonework.
But they're currently spending 140, at a rate of 149% of the revolving account. I mean, they took in 3,500, and they're spending 5,300. So, you know, I guess my question was that salaries or was that actual expenses? Because they're proposing to go get $5,000. But if you add another 5,000, it's really 10,000. But if you look at the actual, what they've been spending for the last 2 years, it's only been $2,700. So my inkling is that that's probably salaries there too.
Right.
So until we get all that information, then we can better understand how we should vote, I guess, for the salary part of it anyway.
Dennis, a couple of years ago, they purchased a laptop, and they have a cemetery software program.
Mhm.
And they have to pay a license for that every year, and
Yeah, I
I
see
think
that in
that's
there.
about $800.
Yeah, that's in
760,
here,
yeah.
So that's
Yeah, I saw
what
that.
bumped them up, because that's within the last couple of years that has become an expense for them.
Do they use the laptop or?
They do.
Okay.
But even with that, I mean, it's the expenses don't match the request, and
Neither do the salaries.
right, and there's just too much unknown in the whole thing.
Well, I'll make your motion to, that you said to set up the task, ask the selectmen to set up the task force with one cemetery commissioner, one finance member, and one board of selectmen member.
And I wouldn't mind being that representative for the finance committee if the committee so desires.
Okay. Do I have a second on the motion?
second.
2 seconds.
I,
Second and seconds. Any other discussion?
So what do we do with the budget right now?
No, hold on, let me
Okay.
just finish with this. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. Now with the budget.
We either approve it or disapprove it and leave it up to the town to vote one way. I mean, all we do is recommend.
Well, I think if we disapprove, we could bring forward a motion
Yeah,
to reduce the
amend it,
expense.
yeah.
Or whatever we think. I mean,
Right.
I think if we aren't gonna approve it and we want something different, then we should say what we want it to be.
Right. Right now, it's within $200 of being level funded, and it's been approved by the selectmen. So we could approve it conditional upon this motion. And then we'll say within the 3 months or 4 months or so that it takes the task force to come up with something, then the budget would be revised at that point.
Can't revise it without a town meeting.
No, but hopefully it would go down and you would get better figures.
But I'm saying you
But-
can't, yeah, you,
right.
it'd be more likely to
It'd
be
just
able to do it for the following year.
underspending, basically. I don't think it would come up with that they need, instead of the 25,200, that they need 30,000. You know, because their expenses are running low, their wages are consistently lower than what they've come up with. So I would think that after the task force does their work, that it would show that you know, they need less than what they're requesting.
My opinion is I think we could cut 5,000 out of expenses and still be well in it, I mean, it could operate with no problem. However, I have no problem with keeping it level funded right now until we get all the information that we're looking for. So I'll make a motion that we accept the cemetery budget as it's for the 20,200 for wages and 5,000 for expenses.
I'll second it.
Okay. Any other discussion? No? Okay, all in favor of recommending the budget at 25,200 and broken down into the 5,000 and 20,200? Signify, just say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
I'd like to oppose.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, let's move on to the debt budget.
Yeah. I'll make a recommendation. A
To-
motion to recommend.
To
Yeah,
approve?
yeah.
Okay, do I have a second?
How many years is the ladder truck gonna be amortized over? Just
Yeah.
5 years?
The debt is 5 years.
Just 5?
We can still discuss it after we have a second, so,
Well, you discuss it after?
I'll
we-
second the
Yeah.
motion.
okay.
I'll second the motion.
All right, now we can discuss it.
Usually you discuss before you approve it.
No,
isn't it?
no, we're not approving it, we're just
No.
making a
Okay,
recommendation,
recommendation.
making the
Making the-
motion and seconding it, then you
Okay.
discuss it.
All right. So how does, because the ladder truck I thought was 700, okay, I guess then all that works out mathematically. 750, 150 times 5. Okay.
Any other questions on the debt? We have debtors here who can speak to it.
What would you like to know? The only thing, if you look under capital equipment interest number 5, that is subject to an article on the annual town meeting for this year's capital.
The only thing I would like to see, like on this schedule, is like, because I think these are all like mixed in terms of how many years they're based on. I'd like to see like the number of years, you know, would,
We appropriate the payment for the current year in the budget.
I know, but I'd like to see what it would be, how many years we're talking about, just for extra information, that's all. Like the library principal, is that like for 20 years? Is
Not
that-
anymore. I mean, you could take a look at, I can get you a copy of, in the audit, it'll tell you exactly what's left on all of the debt items.
Mhm.
You know, originally it was a longer term, we've been paying it down. You know, off the top of my head, I can't tell you what year it ends, but I mean, I have debt schedules and they're.
Like, I know you're saying, but like, if you just had like an extra column with the number of years remaining, is that like, is that a lot extra work to do that? You know, like just to put down like the years appropriate, and how many years remaining left in the, you know, for each one, like fire, ladder truck, 5 years, library maybe 17 years, bridge.
Or even say in the column, let's say for the ladder truck, first of 5 years,
I
second
just
of 5
kinda like
years.
to know that
just have one
information,
column.
I just, you know, I mean, I could do research and look through other reports and get it myself, but if we have the information here for that, you know, just to have an extra column for.
Yeah, they would have the one.
I mean, I can add that information, but, you know, it's not, like I said, it's not that big of a deal, I can do it. But it just has never been asked before.
Well, is anybody opposed to that idea?
No, I mean, I can see where it'd be
Yes.
helpful that,
And
you
what I
know,
would do is I
you'd
would
like to
put the
know,
final year of payment,
we'll say-
because-
That might be the best thing to, is
Yeah.
to find a year of
Yeah.
payment.
That would be good, yeah.
Yeah.
That would be great, yeah. Kind of gives you an idea of what's starting up, what's expiring.
Mhm.
because I know in my own stuff, I like to know when is the misery gonna end.
Yeah.
Never.
It's always something to take us.
Thank you.
Take it to the grave with you.
That's just when you get it done.
Yeah.
Okay, any other discussion on the debt?
No.
All those in favor of recommending signify by saying aye.
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 Okay. Next is the water department budget. And I asked Jamie, our liaison, to talk about the budget and the rates and anything else that she wants to talk about regarding the water department.
Today we were presented with draft 9, which everyone has a copy of. What I'd like to talk about first is the rate study that was put forward, that was discussed at last week's meeting. The copy that I gave you, Table 3, is current rates. Table 3, on the little handout that I gave you.
Jamie, this, it says revision 8. You said it's 9, so just wanna make sure.
331. So they
Which
don't.
one? I only got eight,
Revision
so-
9.
Mine says revision 8.
Mine
This
says
is-
8.
This
This
is
is
8.
Oh, maybe that's the one that she gave me then. Okay. There is a revision 9, and I'll go over the 2 changes on that, I'm sorry. The rate study that was put forth, they were tasked with the job of trying to project out what would be necessary for the next, started with 4 years. The first table, table number 3 in your packet, denotes what the rates are currently. They did make 2 changes. The next page will show you the changes per gallon. They have gone from less than 4,000 gallons to a less than 3,000 gallon tier. The second tier currently is 4,001 gallons to 36,000 gallons. That has been reduced to 3,001 to 3,000. And the high tier was anything greater than 36,001 gallons, which was voted on to be greater than 30,001. There were 4 tables that were presented. The one that the water commissioners voted on will be assessing each ratepayer a flat rate user fee of $20 per month. And then the rate increase is going from $14.91 to $16.70 for the less than 3,000 block. Tier 2 will go from $17.91 to $20.06, and the top tier will go from $19.91 to $22.30.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Are we paying $20 and then?
And then the increase. The increase is approximately 12%. If you add,
So
if
you
you
mean-
factor
so-
in the fee.
so I'm
it will
paying
be
$20.
almost 20%.
$20 flat
So I'm
fee.
paying $20 and then how much water I use?
That
Yes.
is correct.
She didn't get it.
So it's
People
going,
aren't gonna understand that
so
at
it's
Yeah,
all.
going
well-
to be,
Yeah, it's pretty, that was a kind of a sticking point at the meeting, because that's an added fee that
that is correct.
doesn't, it says 12%, but I did some calculations, and I can give you the sheets. I gave you some sheets to look at. But if you take an average, and I assume 3 different scenarios, 5,000 gallons per month, 4,000 and 3,000, that 12% really, for somebody that uses 5,000 gallons per month, is 42.1%. It's not 12, because when you do the numbers and you look at your bill, it's gonna go up 42%. If you have 4,000 gallons, which is a little less, it actually factors to be 51% increase in your bill. And then 3,000 gallons, which is what a lot of people, I guess, according to the water department, are in that category, it's a 56%, 56.7% increase. So I guess the way it went around for a while last week, and my comments were that maybe the rate should have been increased a little bit last year. Everybody wanted to hold the rates because they didn't know what the expenses are. But you can see that we're running a deficit this year of $63,000.
Right.
And I think that can be absorbed according to the discussions through the budget this year, but it expounds dramatically as you go along. So I gave you a sheet, the table 6B, because that's really an important sheet to look at, because the increase doesn't stop this year. It's really gonna compound next year, because there's no way that we can substantiate with the current rate that they just raised to cover the budget for FY17. If you look at 6B, you see that they're proposing to go from 1670, which was just voted, to 2196 per 1,000 gallons for 3,000 or less, which, when you do the numbers, it's another 25.8% increase. So if you look at the sheet, I did a quick spreadsheet before I came here tonight. There's another sheet that basically shows an average yearly Rowley water bill for those 3 categories I talked about, 5,000, 4,000, 3,000. And you can see in FY15, which is the current year under the current rate of $14.90, an average person with 5,000 gallons per year, 5,000 gallons per month, I'm sorry, is paying $930.60 per year. So that number is per year. In FY16, that same person is now going to be paying roughly $1,322. And if they vote the rates next year, that's shown on that 6B chart, that water bill will go to $1,663. So you can see that there's a lot of there's a big increase that's going to be here. So the only way that this is going to change is Commissioner Dizelle said, basically, is control expenses. Now, I know the water treatment plant is fairly new, still working out the numbers, but when I looked at the water department budget, I mean, I saw some things here that I wanted to ask questions on, because I didn't, not that, I don't think that Mary Beth has done a great job in putting the numbers together, but there were a lot of things like repair and maintenance. There were $100,000 items, and I don't have I have the budget in front of me. It's on page, I think it's page, let's see, page 4. You see under repair and maintenance, see where the zeros were for FY15. You see numbers like 10,000 for gate valves, 20,000 for clamps, 30,000 for pipes, 10,000 for brass. Those are all new numbers there, and I know that the department has to make up for some of the deficiencies that transpired over the last few years, but I don't see any backup on that, and I'm thinking if those could be trimmed, and to me it looks like some of those could be trimmed a little bit, I mean, that would be just an added savings overall. I mean, I saw the other big thing I really wanted to get some backup on was on the energy costs. I see electricity 100, and I see 55 for propane and gas, and 23 for fuel. Fuel's going down, but in here it's going up. So I don't know if that's because it's added vehicles or whatever, but I don't know where those numbers came from. And I think as we go through this year, I think the finance committee, I think the water commissioners mostly need to look at everything that they're spending, and they need to analyze it to the T. Because I think next year, we are gonna go through the same thing. There's no way that this water department can run without an additional increase next year on top of this
Well,
year.
that's why the numbers, I think, it's better that they might be, if there's a little bit of a cushion, I'd rather see the numbers higher than lower, because even if you're saying that they don't come in at these numbers, then,
Yeah.
next year will even be a greater hike, so I'd rather see, because I did numbers too, and I came up with the average usage would be 4,764 gallons per person.
Okay,
And you need that would come out to a bill of about $94.05 average water bill for this,
month.
upcoming fiscal year.
Yeah.
For FY. So I'd rather than, because what happens if it's not enough, then instead of a 20% increase next year, we might be talking about a 35 or 40, so, I mean, I don't.
that's why we have a
think-
sticker shock this year, because they should have
Well, they should
stepped
have
it up a
done- they
little
should have,
bit.
Right, but they
Well,
didn't.
they didn't.
They didn't.
But what I
know.
didn't like here, and I did voice my opinion, that this $240 base fee
Right.
is thrown in there. I'd rather
Oh,
see it on the rate
Yeah,
based on
me
the,
too. I
the,
don't
the amount
like
of
that at
water you
all.
use, as opposed to charging you $20 a month, $240 a year.
Did they present that as one of the options?
They,
That-
We didn't
yes,
talk about it all last week.
That's been in
In
all the options, was the
6B.
240.
Yeah.
Right, but I thought they figured out what the rate increase would be if you took the the $20
with the
a
no,
month out.
with the no base charge there, that is 6C, and that the water commissioners did not vote to support that. 6C, the rate would have been $19.98, $24, and $26.68, and that they would have taken out the $20 flat rate.
What would have happened
So
if you did,
6C,
if you didn't put
they
the
did
20,
have three options.
if you didn't put that $20 kicker in there, it would even mean that they would have less, because people would even be more aware of what their rates are, and would even put less, so there would be more people shifting for lower usage. So by having a $20 base fee, there's still gonna be some of that, but maybe less, because people are gonna still have to, everyone's still gonna have to pay the $20. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? So
Right.
I think in that sense, it's good that they have a flat fee, some part of it, because it would even encourage people to even, use less water. And so then they would have to change these brackets like they did this time, because people are, very aware of their water rates.
Well, that's what you
You
gotta
know,
be
and,
careful, is because with the rates going up like they are, people are gonna start conserving more.
I know that.
Besides
That's what I'm-
the drought things that we have, and people start drilling their own wells, because it gets to a point where you drill a well, it's cheaper to have a well than it is to be on town water. And so you could end up burning yourself, and so that's what you gotta be careful of, I guess,
Yes.
So,
Well, that's
as
what
we
I
go
agree.
forward with the treatment plant, we need to just be, I mean, not we, I think the water commissioners have to basically stay on top of this to make sure
Nickel
that
dime.
expenses are what they are. And, I mean, it is what it is, and we have to pay for it, but
Yeah.
it could bite us in the butt.
Because even
too.
like if they're going out a few years from now for what they think they're gonna get for monies, for water. If somebody gets hit, like you mentioned, 42%, 56% or whatever, you're gonna start seeing people abandoning, vegetable gardens, watering outside, filling, those who have pools, not filling them, conserving on water in the household. And they won't get the projected revenues that they want with, this massive conservation.
And that was part of the discussion by the man that did the presentation, said that, because that question was raised too, and he said historically, there is a 3-year flux where people will gear back, really make sure that they're attentive to their water usage and conserve where they were more than they have traditionally, but then it will peter back out to, he said it's about a 3-year flux. I did.
Well, they are
I think it's
investing.
obscene, I mean, I figured out it's a 49% increase from last year, average. And you're gonna probably talk another 25 or 30%
Yeah,
increase next
17.
year.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's.
Yeah,
it's-
and look at the numbers I gave you, those are the numbers based on
Absolutely.
the reports that we have, so they're staggering.
Yeah.
I just have one question on that sheet that we couldn't see. It was the overtime sheet, it was real small.
Right.
So I blew it up to something that we could look at, and I was hoping that the water department would be here, because I just wanted to explain that a little bit, because there's a lot of information here, and it involves a lot of overtime, and I gave everybody the sheet, and you can see that the total for FY16 is $88,000, and it's based on planned overtime during the day, weekends at double time and a half, et cetera, and I didn't know whether the water commissioners had looked at maybe, because they're adding these additional people, because the DEP requires primary and secondary people to be on board, if they could have a different shift. You know, maybe somebody starts 4 hours earlier than the second person, so that you could reduce that to a reasonable number. Because when you get into holidays and stuff, the calculations up there, I mean, there's some heavy numbers. On call is 28,000. Scheduled overtime 21. Then it goes to 16 for normal week overtime, and then it goes down to snow and ice. They anticipated some snow and ice overtime, and it's a staggering number. So I don't know whether. I mean, it might be too late to look at that, but it might be something that they may want to look at in the future to see if there's some way they can restructure the hours of the operations. The other question I had too was more, maybe Karen can help me on that, is their base rate that they used in the calculation sheet. For example, the primary operator is 2808, but in the sheet on page 2, which shows the salaries for this year, it's 2836. Did they miss the 1% on this?
It's a 1% raise within the contract.
They missed it?
The union no, they didn't miss it. That's what the.
Oh, I know what that is, but the calculation sheet for the budget doesn't have the 1% in it.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
Yeah.
The overtime?
No, just a regular salary. This whole sheet is based on those 3 categories up on the right-hand side of that page there. See, it says 2808 base rate, 2624, 2624, and when you add 1% to that, it comes out to this sheet here, which is probably what they're going to get in FY16, but this sheet
Right.
didn't have the 1% throughout the whole overtime calculation. So what I'm saying is the 88,000 might not be the right number. It might be higher, 1% higher.
I know that Mary Beth had said that she doesn't expect the overtime to be that high. And when you were talking about the scheduled overtime, that's all part of the union contract,
Okay.
so that is kind of what it is.
She's been able to cut back on that. She has a 16-hour-a-week secondary water operator who works for another municipality. And that operator does come in and works actually Saturdays and Sundays. So was able, after years and years and years of not having
Yeah.
a situation like that, been able to cut back on some of that.
Yeah, but now that
scheduled
we're adding
overtime.
2 more people, I just thought maybe there's an opportunity to say that in their job description that your hours are this. You may have to go to the union for that, but
Yeah, that's
you can
fine.
negotiate it.
I'm in the middle of a contract that's been settled, so
Yeah.
something like that would have to wait
Yeah.
until we start negotiations again.
But if somebody could just check those rates, because I'm not sure that this sheet reflects the 1%.
Yeah, we did send you guys the Excel spreadsheet so that you could back into it.
He's talking about these
Yeah.
base numbers there.
Do you see what I'm saying, though?
Yep, I do.
Yeah,
I do.
so, I mean, I just wanna make sure that shouldn't be 100,000, you know, because then you're gonna be short 1% on this side.
Okay,
Okay.
so,
Bob, did you have a question
Well,
or
I
comment?
just basically wanted to make sure that they understood that the land overtime is pretty much dictated by the DEP to look at those wells every day, which means you have to carry it into the weekend. And the rate, which I think is the minimum 3 hours, is union negotiated. So you're kind of stuck with that, at least for the time being, until they can renegotiate those things.
But I do also want to add that, with the rates and all, they are looking into, like, there's 35 customers that have zero water usage.
Right.
So they're looking into that as far as whether it's truly zero or whatever.
Correct.
And they're looking into, last year they extended the discount time period. And that discount accounts for, I think it's $80,000 this year, $100,000 next year. So they are looking into ways of increasing their revenues and not having the sticker shock that we have this year, even though that we knew it was coming, but still when it hits, you're not happy with it. But they are working towards that, and like you say, I think it's incumbent upon the commissioners to look more into the revenue side of things, and monitor, of course, the day-to-day operation, but to concentrate a lot more on the revenue side.
One more thing to add, they are currently, they have a current shortfall on 6A, you'll see, of $63,973.08. There is roughly $70,000 in shut-off notices that are going out to customers who are in arrears in April, and they're hoping that that will offset that.
Yes, sir.
One thing you wanna be careful of with the discount, it depends on what they're trying to accomplish. Typically, a discount will increase your cash flow. Okay, you send out the bill, the payment comes in the same month. If you eliminate the discount, then it starts to drag out as far as when the money comes in. You wind up with more arrears than with the discount itself. Now, the discount also can go the other way. I mean, it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. If you don't need the cash flow, then the discount works fine, because then people will pay.
Right. But, it's not for us to say what's the proper discount,
No, I understand.
period.
Right.
But, they did increase it to be more in line with the light department, which maybe was not a good idea because they're not the light department. But that's something that,
But Larry,
they have to
they
look
were
at.
getting, the bills were getting out so late. There was like 2 or 3 days sometimes to pay and get the discount. Because they were supposed to be out by the 10th and you had till the 20th to pay and get the discount. And
Right.
you weren't getting the bills. So you weren't being able to take the discount.
Right, but now that they have the staff, and again, I mean, that's something that the superintendent and the commissioners have to work with as far as getting sufficient people there. And now with Pennachuck, they shouldn't have that problem, but that's their concern.
The problem with Pennachuck is they don't cash the checks. They take a long time for those checks to clear your account.
They shouldn't.
They
Because
do.
they're read electronically.
They do. I know because I work in the bank and I know how long it takes. And it's 7 to 10 days for that check to clear my account.
Where do you pay it?
I mail it.
You mail it, okay.
That leads to another comment. I even called Pennachuck, I pay my bills online, and I think it's such a waste to get the paper bill every month, and I just throw it out. Because I pay everything online. I suspect most people probably pay their bills online. And how much are we paying Pennachuck a year to send paper statements out to everybody in town? And if, let's say, 50% of the townspeople pay their bills online, why are we paying to have paper bills mailed out to everybody?
Because you need to know what your bill is.
Why not send it to us? We pay online. Why can't we go and check and see what our bill is? I get a
Well, but
notification.
You get it electronically.
Not even
Yeah.
on
I
the
mean-
computer though.
No, I understand that. I'm saying
But-
people that they know that pay their bills online
Mhm.
have a computer. That would be, you know, what percent
But
is it?
we're paying Pennachuck or the water department's paying Pennachuck a set amount
It's a flat
for
rate.
collections. Now,
Could
that
that be
affects,
reduced though if it was electronically
Well,
sent out rather than
that
processing
might,
paper?
we'll say,
You won't
increase
have a big
Pennachuck's
percentage, I
profit.
don't think, because we, what you have to do, the way the law works, is you have to opt out of a paper bill. The law says, we have to send you a bill. And you as, I'm speaking from the tax bill perspective, because that's what we do in my office. You can tell me that, okay, I don't wanna receive that paper bill. You can opt into an electronic bill.
Right.
And I thought the water department might have that too.
I called them twice, and last year I called twice, because they just don't stop. I keep getting the paper. But you're right. I mean, like, whenever I deal with my bank, department stores, and
Yeah.
other companies, I opt out for paper.
Right.
I don't see why, going forward, the town couldn't. I mean, we're paying Pennachuck, I don't know how much, to do that. You know,
Right.
I thought, you know, it was time to go paperless. I think most people would opt out.
But they don't. They
Yeah.
don't.
They
I
don't.
think we have about 80 people that opt out of their tax bills. And, you know, we have over 50% of our tax bills are paid by banks through escrows. So I don't think you'd see the adoption that you think you would see. People like paper.
Okay. I pay a lot of my bills electronically,
I
but
do.
I want that paper bill in my hand. I want it. And I get it.
We pay for it too,
Yeah, but I want it.
you know.
I don't pay any bills electronically.
I do all of mine. I have done several years, no postage.
I keep my
That's
computer
nice.
turned off till the bill's paid.
They can't hack into my mail yet. Okay, any other discussion?
So where do we stand with the water budget now as far as the bottom line number? I mean, this is what, the 8th or 9th revision, is it,
This is 9,
is
which was
is the
finalized
number
today.
changed at the bottom?
This is,
I mean, I got this one here, which is what everybody's got, I guess, right?
Which says
Well,
revised, number 8, revised March 20th, and
But I mean, the bottom line number of 2.7,
2.749.
see, I got 5.7, but
It went up slightly,
Yeah,
Went up
37,000.
to accommodate for some articles in the annual town meeting with regard to debt issuance.
Did it go up or down?
It went up.
It went up. And this is what Mary Beth gave me at the water department meeting.
Go up
So
about
what was the grand
37.
total?
The grand total is 2,749,685.47.
So isn't that down? Doesn't mine say 2,757,685?
Mine says 2,757,000. You have a different one than,
yeah.
do you have one that we don't have, because you said you have revision 9?
Yeah,
Right.
the
What is
revision
this
eight-
one?
revision 8, yeah.
yeah, 2,749,006.
Well, you have 2,757,000.
Well, has this been approved by the selectmen?
Can I see this one?
Any budget?
The selectmen,
Oh,
yes,
this
approved
one
last
is-
night.
This one's a
And
new
what
one, right?
number?
That I-
Yeah.
Yeah, it says 9. Yeah,
This
I
is
don't have
one
that
from
one.
today.
Yeah, I don't think we
She
have.
just,
So they've come up
she
with a
just
new one?
printed.
Well, what
So it went
happened
up about
was,
another 12.
basically, the
No,
capital
it went down.
committee decided how they
Yeah.
wanted to, put
Went down about 8,000.
the capital team decided how they wanted to
This
put the
payment
capital
compared to
article, on the
767.
warrant. And that actually had an effect, because the water department has, an article for paving Pingree Farm Road and Prospect Hill Road. And the way it worked out, both of those are in the special now. So because they're in the special, there'll be a principal payment in fiscal year 16 that had to be accounted for.
But 9 has gone down from what?
8, yeah.
8, this is what we have, and if selectmen approved 8, then they have a reduced value for 9.
And did what did the water commissioners vote? Because they didn't vote the ninth budget, I wouldn't think, right? I mean, they didn't vote anything at the last meeting.
They voted on capital projects that included Pingree
Okay.
Farm Road and Prospect Hill.
So you
as
can
I
consider that
understand.
as,
So those were,
Yeah.
those came in as articles for the special town meeting, which automatically triggered a debt payment in fiscal 16 for those. And additionally, the state revolving fund told the superintendent the other day that the minimum threshold that they would allow her to increase the SRF for the water treatment plant for Pingree Farm Road was 200,000. So that has to be an appropriation of 200,000, even though the estimates had come in at 150. The authorization will be for 200,000. So they weren't gonna extend that loan to the town unless that would change. So that may be reflected in this payment schedule here.
Yes,
Based on
it's,
200,000.
yes, the schedule we get from the SRF is based on that.
That
So-
was the only change that I understood, but the draft that I have that Mary Beth sent me just before she went into her meeting at 6:30 is the one you have in your packet and has a line 26 and 27. If you look under the debt, that's the payments, right? You did those, you the.
Right, principal
Yeah.
and interest.
Yeah. So the draft 8 that you have, that I wrote 331.15 on, I think is the final budget.
So the final budget is 2,757,685
And 47 cents.
and 47. Is that correct?
which number is
Is
it?
that different from what?
That's
No,
not
like-
what they
Like-
have.
It's 2,749,000 according to,
Yeah, it's actually a little less, right?
it's less, according to what she has. the numbers.
And it has a higher revision number, so you'd think that.
Yeah, you would think it would be the higher number.
Well,
I have a bigger problem now, I'm looking at
What's that, about
this
8,000 less?
based on the water
Yeah, the
rate.
other one was
So
740.
now it's $100,000 more. Well, let's see what happens.
Prospect,
The debt is in there. But 2,749.
I have another issue then, if, whatever that is, we're in the 2.7, if you look at the water rate study and the rate that they're proposing, they're figuring 2.68 million. So they're $100,000 short in the rate as they approved, if it's the
Right.
2.7. What happens there?
Yeah, but I think they took out, some fees or something, water fees, that they subtracted $140,000 in fees when they figured out the rate. That's,
See what I'm saying?
they took
I
out,
don't have I know what happened was they needed to adjust it downward, the budget downward, which is probably the difference between this one, it's about $8,000. They had to adjust it downward, so the numbers in the rate study weren't negative for fiscal year 16. So that's why I think the one that Jamie has actually goes down, because they made adjustments in other portions of the budget, so that number on the rate study didn't go negative.
Well, it will go negative though, right? Because the rate study sheet shows that they're basing the rate study on 2.68 million. And we're,
Does that include the fees on the other page?
yeah, the fees are,
when I did my numbers, I took the fees out, and then I figured out what the average rate, because I took out $134,200 in fees that they have. Because when they figured out the rate, they subtracted those fees. And then they took the number of households divided by, I think there's 2,183 households in Raleigh. You divide that number by the total debt minus the fees. That's how I think they come to the number.
it comes out to 2.8.
2,683. So the billing was actually,
Do
Yeah, it's a base fee,
But
So- that's why.
isn't, but that can't be the total amount collected.
No, the next line down multiplies it out, see total annual
this
base.
isn't
So it takes
included?
1,800 services,
Yeah.
health services,
Yeah,
right
right
there,
here.
times that, comes out to that.
What's the
Okay.
difference between
Yes, okay, I just double, I checked that too.
three?
That's where that, because I saw 240, so it's,
Yeah,
yeah, but you gotta multiply it times the
Okay.
What's the difference in the?
1,816 services, because I divided it out, came into 1860, and then I saw it up there. Well, I have a problem with this though, because this estimated revenue, 10 services, so if you go by the fee,
Right.
well, I can mention that out there too, but
So
they're saying 10 new services, right?
in
So if you
But
do a
where
new
is
service, you
the
have to do new
difference? Where
service
is this money
application,
coming from? We have this 17.
which is, service application is 4,000.
It's about
Turn on is 100,
$72,000
tapping charge is
difference.
1,000, I don't know
This
what
is
the meter is.
higher
It's up to
with the
5,100
existing
times 10,
fees, and
it
this
should be
is lower.
51,000.
Yeah.
Wanted to come in
I'm
next
thinking-
week.
But it's still-
I mean,
it's-
but it could be
there's
wrong.
obviously so
Same.
many questions on the
because
revenue
it's,
piece
this
that I
is
don't.
straight out.
Yeah, I think there's
Flat rate
so many
per month.
budgets
Okay.
Yes.
running around.
Can the chairman maybe get together with, Mary Beth or something and just come up with one scenario, I guess, so that we all on the same
Yeah.
page? 'Cause I think we all have little questions here and there, and
Right.
I don't know what to vote on, I mean, really.
Where
Yeah,
did you get
it's-
your 2.6 rate from? You said you came up with 2.6 something.
on the,
Right here, on the top of
It's
the
on
sheet.
the, it's on
Where,
the page.
where?
Yeah, but I didn't add the revenue, proposed revenue. Which, and if you add that, it comes out to 2.817, so it must be close to what the budget is now. But I got one of the, I don't know another fly in the ointment here, but, and again, the water department would have been able to answer that, but if you look on the revenue side too, I was looking at estimated revenue per service. If you look on the second page, you're saying that they anticipate 10 new services.
Right.
So what constitutes a new service? It's the service application, the turn-on fee, the tapping charge, and then obviously the meter. And when you add those new fees that they're proposing here, it comes out to $5,100. So times 10, should that number be 51 instead of 11?
It's 3,000 that they charge for the new service. I think the other services are,
But they're gonna go to 4.
they're good,
Yep.
okay, so to 4.
Yeah.
Um,
And then the turn-on fee, they'd have to turn on the service to the house, that's 100.
I think that's if they shut your water off and then they have to go out and turn it back on. I don't think that's related
They don't
to
do that
new
for a new service.
No.
All right, that's
I think
$100.
your 4,000 includes your meter.
The tapping
your
charge,
connection,
everything,
tapping.
okay.
I believe, I mean, Mary Beth
Okay,
can
but even,
verify
so
that.
even if you do 4 times 10 would be
4,000.
4,000 times 10 would be 40,000
right.
instead of 11,000. I don't know where they got that 11,565.
Well, I think there's also water usage. Because they're estimating the base charge of 2,400.
Yeah, I see that.
Okay, so that's 240 a month. So they're
Right.
estimating 12
Oh,
months.
so that's the
of-
water usage.
Yes.
Basic
Okay,
fee.
not the,
Well, it's the base
Okay,
charge.
It's the base charge plus
Okay.
the water usage.
With the water usage or just the base charge?
That
no, that's just the water
11,000.
usage, because the base charge is at 2,400.
Oh, this is, so.
But I
that's-
thought that was
Well, no.
the application process, but I guess that's just the water usage that they're anticipating.
I think so.
Yeah, okay, that answers the question. Don't know if the number's right, but it, answers the question.
Larry, I think the committee probably needs her to come back next week so you can take a vote. Otherwise, it's a recommendation from the floor on whatever we have.
Right.
This next week will be the last, meeting of the FinCom to make any changes in the warrant.
Well, we listed a bunch of questions tonight, if we get the answers. I mean, I'm more concerned, well, one of the concerns is to make sure that rate for the wages is correct, because that could be a significant number, I'm not sure. And then the other questions that we had tonight, maybe we could just list them out, see if we get an answer, and then we can make, I feel more comfortable next week getting some of these answers as opposed to just, doing a number.
Right. No, I think what we need to do is to postpone it until next week, okay? Because there's too many budgets floating around.
Yeah, we just get them
and
at the last minute.
I don't know whether the 3 p.m. budget is the correct one or the 6:45 p.m. one was, or whatever. And then we'll say if the questions, we can maybe
If you send the
Submit.
questions to me, I
Right.
will get them to that way there'll be no online discussions of anything. Send me the questions,
All right,
I will send them to the superintendent and have her compile a question and answer sheet for the FinCom with her
Yep.
responses to each of the questions. I think that's the best way to handle it.
right.
I mean, the bottom line is, as long as whatever budget we propose, that the rate study covers it up at the top, you know, as long as that balances out, then,
Yes.
you know, it is what it is.
I know they called me today from Tata and Howard to ask about the debt, so I know she is working with them very closely
Okay.
to make sure that, you know, the numbers are correct.
I'll make a motion that we postpone water until next week,
Okay.
and that people submit the
Table it.
questions to Debbie, and so that she can give them to Mary Beth.
I'll second the motion.
All right. Seconded. Any other discussion or questions? Okay, so everyone will submit their questions to Debbie.
It should
Directly.
go through you, so, and then you
I
coordinate
just
them, so we're not
CC,
asking.
I just CC him.
So if we
on it.
all ask the same question? Debbie's gonna do it, or one of us does it.
You want them to send them to me, and then I'll send them to you?
It's up to you, I think what Janet is saying, probably there may be duplication of
Right.
questions, but when I put it all together. and
You
give
gotta
it
make
to
one
Mary
question.
Beth, I think she's just gonna be able to
One question will
condense it
answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
to the
Okay.
point anyway, if that helps anybody. I think you're all.
Well, I think
similar.
we should have a reply to everyone, so if you have an issue, I have an issue, we see what you're talking about, because maybe there
can't-
might
We
be.
can't
We can't do
But
Can't do
why? Why?
'Cause it has to be
Open
open.
Open meeting law.
You can't
No.
see what.
Well-
Item number 4 here, discuss latest open meeting law guide. You really wanna read that before you start emailing back and forth and discussing what you're gonna do for questions? Yes. Because that will be a violation of the open meeting law.
Really?
That's correct.
So when we send you something, we're not supposed to say just reply for everybody, just be.
When you email
When we
someone.
email when someone for a reply, you don't, I usually to hit reply all,
No, you
Everybody.
can't really
You
do
know?
that anymore.
You shouldn't be
That-
discussing anything
well,
outside of this meeting.
Right now,
I'm talking
uh,
just with the people
yeah.
in this room.
You should
Right.
not be emailing anybody on this board unless you're transmitting documents for meeting agendas or a schedule of things. And once you discuss any topic that's under the purview of the finance committee online with other members, it's a violation of the state open meeting law. It's a state law. And it is enforced by the Attorney General.
So it does make sense then to just send
Okay.
our questions to you, and if you see some duplication or whatever, you,
right,
It's
so
all
the
together.
burden will be on Debbie to avoid the duplication, so
okay.
let's do that.
Well, hopefully if you get 2 questions the same and you ask them questions twice, you'll come back the same answer.
And do you wanna
Thank-
put a deadline on,
Well, knowing that either me or Monday, she's gonna need time to prepare that. So if you could get him to me by the latest Thursday at 10 o'clock, I'd say, in the morning. So
That
she
sounds
has Friday, I know she has, she's gonna be busy on Monday and probably would not be able to work on this.
Add that to my motion.
By Thursday.
Okay.
At 10 a.m.
Any other discussion? All in favor of postponing it and submitting questions to Debbie, signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, now we go to the open meeting. Did everyone get the open meeting? Okay. Let me just, open up by saying that other departments are, have been reviewing it, and I figured that since this came out in March, that it was appropriate to have everyone get a copy of the open meeting law and discuss it. And you can read it and become familiar with it, but some of the things I want to point out that in a separate document, they were listing that most of the violations are either incomplete, incorrect, or inaccurate minutes, which I don't think will have a problem. But also what we were talking about to begin with, the email deliberations, and that's the discussing of topics that we would, like the water budget. Okay, we can't email each other and say, what are the questions? What do you feel like this should be?
Page 4.
We can't really go into that. That's one of the major violations that they have. And basically, the email or meeting of a quorum discussing the meeting or public business within its jurisdiction is one of the major violations.
I think on page 4 that it's pretty expressive right there. It says,
Right.
note that the expression of an opinion on matters with the body's jurisdiction to a quorum, even if no other public body members responds. For example, if a member of a public body sends an email to a quorum of a public body expressing her opinion on a matter that could come before the body, this communication violates the law, even if none of the recipients respond. That's key. So,
And just as a furtherance, if
Can I take it one step further? So, we're saying, okay, so can you state facts or nothing at all you can do, if you're just saying what
no.
the dollar.
That's deliberation.
revenue, you
That's a
can't-
deliberation.
So you can't even state the facts the way they are, it's still a violation, I don't
discuss it,
know.
we're not
Not
discussing
Yeah,
the
it's-
facts. Okay, well,
Yeah.
it's best not to. I mean, there are things you could talk about, the time of the meeting or things like that. But if it's a gray area, I would avoid it.
Let me, I'll
And-
throw a fly in the ointment here, because I guess I want to find out somebody's response. If I email Peter regarding something at the meeting, and just Peter, is that a violation? Because it's not a quorum of the,
It's not a quorum, but it does discuss in here, then if Peter sends it off to Jamie and then.
oh yeah,
or-
individually, to
and-
more or the
and he-
majority, I agree. But if he expresses an
just
opinion
email.
to me, or I send a letter or an email to Larry,
Right.
that's not a violation, I don't
No,
believe.
it's when it starts getting bumped around.
Yeah, if Larry then turns and sends it to 3 or 4 people regarding, yeah,
Then it's a problem.
yeah. So you
Right,
we can
And all your,
communicate.
excuse me, and also, all your private, so if obviously if you're using work email or private email, don't forget, when you leave office, you should be turning all those emails over to the town. Those are public records.
No, you're going to get my old computer.
Well, you set up your own.
Hillary.
I was just gonna say.
Larry
that
set up
was-
what I was gonna say.
an email for town business when he got on the finance committee, just to avoid the commingling of,
Windows
his
98.
personal email accounts. But you do have to turn that
Right.
over. Your emails are subject, even on your own, Verizon or home email or work email. That's a public record, and because you're public officials, you have to turn those over as part of the finance committee records.
But that's for topics specifically related to the finance committee
Well,
or
if-
town.
The thing is, if you email them to me, you wouldn't,
You have a copy.
I'm on the town server, so almost, if every email is copied to me, that's how you're covered. If you're emailing one to another, you don't copy town hall, me
Yeah.
or Amy or somebody here in the office, then you're obligated to make sure you store that and preserve that, at least in the national species of its, of an online file.
I'm not emailing any of you.
You don't have to print it out.
Not even a Christmas
It's the
card.
easiest
But
way.
it has to be
No,
maintained in
send it by
electronic
mail.
format of some type and then
Okay.
transmitted to the town.
I know when you go on this website, if people don't want to read, they have some, I think they have 6 brief, like 14-minute sessions of different sections of the law. So if you want to, you got nothing to do and you want to go on to that, that might be helpful too. So,
But one of the other gray areas is, like, Dennis, if you email me on something and then I email Peter the same thing or a similar type of thing who
that's
emails
a chain of 3.
Yeah, and you don't know.
Paul,
if the
then,
others- yeah.
it becomes a gray area. But I would avoid it. And basically, this, if found guilty, and it's intentional, the public body, which would be, we'll say the FinCom in this case, could be fined $1,000 for the public body, okay, per incident. Or if it's not intentional, then you go through a re-education of the open meeting law. And,
Basically want to pay the $1,000.
well, since it's not in our budget.
That would,
and
we'd have to go for a transfer from the reserve fund.
And I don't want to really get re-educated, so just avoid the emails. Any other thoughts or discussions? And don't email me on this then. Okay, let's start into the fun stuff now. Review the drafts of the annual and special town meetings, and let's start with the special town meeting, which is draft 3. Okay, Articles 1, 2, and 3 are boilerplate. Let's go to 4. Sum of $4,000, yeah, it's line 7, for the holding of the special town meeting. Any,
I'll make a motion that we recommend that.
okay, we have a
And I'll
motion
second.
by second by Jamie. Any discussion on it? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Article 5. It's the storm drain grants.
I'll make the motion.
So you can use grant money though, what was earmarked for bridges, and you can use it for the, to pay the town hall, that's okay to do that? I'm assuming it is, cause it's in here, but,
Right.
you know, it looks, it just,
Yeah, it's
I
unexpended.
don't,
So for storm grants, so that money doesn't go back if it's not used, it's just, can be used for something else? I thought the same thing.
you know, I didn't know grants, you could do that, but.
I don't know
I
either.
mean, we spent well over that amount on the bridges. And I believe it probably, the total amount after reimbursements was borrowed. And this was money, I think, that they had
Mhm.
set aside in case anything else
Yeah.
had come up.
Okay, do I have a motion to recommend?
I'll make that motion, Larry.
You have
I'll
a
second.
motion? Second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Right.
Okay, unanimous. Article 6. Air conditioner.
That basically is money that we had left over from a borrowing that we need to repurpose. It was from capital number 3. And when we borrow money, we need to make sure we spend the money we borrow, or we get in trouble with the IRS.
I'll make a motion that we recommend. I don't wanna get in
Okay.
trouble with the IRS.
I'll second it.
Any other discussion? All in favor, recommending, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Article 7. Another transfer. This is
Just one question,
to
just for
defray the costs,
clarification.
right?
How long does that money sit, can that money sit there for any length of time, or is
You need to spend the money within 2 years
2 years? Okay, because it used to be 3 years, I knew,
for debt, for borrowing.
okay,
If you haven't spent it by 2 years, you should be
it goes,
repurposing it.
so this is
Especially
two
when we're-
thousand 12?
I'm sorry?
So this is 2012 on this money?
The
Date of approval,
right, at the annual town meeting.
okay, but that's 2012 versus, that's more than 2 years, right?
Almost 3.
I think that date is wrong. I think those dates are switched.
And I think the date was last
I think
year
the two,
or
I think
so
the
for
dates
the
on the articles
vehicle.
are switched,
Okay,
because the COA vehicle was last year,
Right.
and the other one, the smaller one is
Right.
2012.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so,
So is this snow blower specifically for the library?
Yes, their janitor, there's a lot of walkways, and sidewalk areas, so it's used a lot, even last year.
Does the
We
town
have-
hall have one, and does each department have one?
No, just the library has it because they have a lot of unique little walkways and
Okay.
access ways to the back lot, and he also blows all the way, on that sidewalk out to Main Street, which is done by the highway department of the
Okay.
sidewalks.
and instead of to pay, you wanna use the defray, the cost?
This
Or is
should
that-
cover that cost, $2,915.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
I'll make a motion to accept Article 7.
Okay, have a second?
Dates.
I second.
Oh, okay, didn't hear you, sorry, Janet.
Larry, who made that second?
I did
Janet did,
quietly.
yes.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Article 8. Yeah, that's
Okay,
the,
so we're not gonna be using up the rest of the reserve fund to go into this. We're just gonna take it all out of free cash.
And then the balance in the reserve fund will go to next year's free cash.
Yeah, okay, that's,
And there may be a transfer.
Yeah,
We-
okay.
We don't have everything in.
okay.
Yeah, how much balance in the reserve fund do you think we will have after this?
I don't know what the balance
The
in the
last,
reserve
the
fund
last
is.
bill that came in was this past week, and it was like $20,000. I think that was for that last one we had on, was it a
Right,
Sunday or
but-
something?
But I think he's asking about the balance in the reserve fund.
Oh,
Oh,
don't
I was
know.
just the
I don't
Pine
know.
Grove School, which was, almost
16,500,
Yeah.
17,000.
so,
So,
Which-
50,
Yeah,
30.
yeah, so, yeah, okay.
Is that
33.
20,000 then that Bob mentioned reflected in here?
I don't believe so,
No,
no.
it's
No.
So that may
No,
come
no,
out of the
it's not.
reserve
So I
fund.
think
Right.
there
About
could be
30,000 maybe or something.
Right.
potential transfer. when we get here.
33,500.
The weatherman very nicely said you could expect snow next Tuesday.
There you go.
That's my daughter's birthday, and when she was growing up, it always snowed on her birthday.
Hmm.
Always.
Always. In 1982, we got like a foot and a half.
Okay, do I
Remember
have,
that one. I remember that one.
okay, Paul made the motion.
I'll
Do I have a
second
second? Jamie a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, Article 9. 35,000. Okay. It's basically for the town wharf and landing. The bids came in a lot higher than what they had expected, so we need to add money there.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, I have a motion by Sharon. Do I have a second? Second, silent Janet.
I tell you, I know it's a very busy area. I've watched the boats go down by my house constantly.
Any other discussion? All in favor of recommending? Say
Aye.
aye. Unanimous. Article 10.
So this is the town's portion that we're paying with the water department to do that?
It's both.
Right.
Yeah, because the water department said they would pay for some and the town would pay for some.
Right,
So that's our, we're saying
This is the
75 for the town.
towns.
right. So the
Okay.
town's portion is coming out of free cash and the water department will be borrowing theirs.
Right.
Okay, do I have a recommendation?
I'll make that motion.
Amy, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Article 11. Do I have a motion to recommend Article 11?
I'll make a motion.
All right.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of recommending signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Article 12.
I'll make a motion for approve Article 12.
Yeah,
I'll
okay.
second.
Yes, Paul. Any discussion on the appropriation? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Article 13, 200,000.
I'll recommend. Make the motion rather.
Have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second. Any
What
discussion?
is Article 13?
Yes.
Why should the town pay for that though? As opposed to, because if this is for only the benefit of the water users, why should?
Is that being borrowed under the,
It's the
That's
debt-
being
Water
borrowed.
treatment
The
grant?
SR It's
I
going
mean,
to
not
the
grant,
SRF.
It's the same loan that we're using for the water treatment plant.
Yeah.
The water department is paying for this,
Right.
but it has to be
Okay.
voted to add it to the loan.
But does it?
It doesn't
the
say that though, it says to
explanation-
see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $200,000 to pay additional costs of developing the water treatment plant, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereon to determine whether this amount should be raised by borrowing or otherwise provided. That's what I read. And let me see what it says
Water
below.
treatment plant construction, and you can only use the SRF money for that.
But
Okay.
can the,
The state has actually declared that we could use that money because it's part of the water treatment plant.
And
Yes,
the
sir.
water department can't borrow money, the town has to borrow money.
but can the, explanation,
Yeah, we could.
Expand
yeah,
on
it says the
that.
water department's
This
gonna
has
pay
been
for it.
vetted by the bond council. Karen had it reviewed and by the DEP, the SRF department. So we can tweak that to be clearer. I
That
guess.
it is part of the state revolving fund project.
Right. Yep.
Basically,
I think to further say that the water department will be, through the rates, will be paying for this. They're paying the debt associated with that.
correct.
Okay,
Mhm. It's part of their budget, which was why their budget went up.
yep. I just think it needs to be in here so that everyone's clear.
I agree. Do we vote on that?
Would we vote on it and then with the recommendation that
Yeah.
Janet?
Right.
Yeah, we didn't
Yeah.
vote on that, that's all.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Okay, do I have a recommendation to accept with the,
I'll make the recommendation with the additional explanation.
I'll second.
any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Now to Article 14.
I'll make a motion that we recommend.
Okay. Have a motion. Have a second.
I'll second.
Have a second. Any discussion?
This is also covered by the water department's budget,
Yes.
Yeah.
so can that be,
Same sentence maybe put in there too.
I mean,
And-
it's being transferred from water department maintenance to cost of debt issuance, which is a water art line.
I understand, but I think from people from the town, I think it's just it would be nice to be very clear that this is coming out of the water department's budget, that they're responsible for this. I mean, I think we all understand it, because we've talked about it, but if you were reading this, I'm not sure that
Yeah,
it's
so
clear.
what I can say is, of Article 6, Water Department budget of the annual town meeting
Okay.
of May 5th, 2014, to be added to line 26 of cost of debt issue of the Water Department budget of Article 6.
And I have a question on the explanatory note, it might be my lack of knowledge, that bond counsel, is that something legal, or should it be, is it C-O-U-N-C-I-L-E, counsel? Oh, it is an
It's
attorney?
person, yeah,
Okay,
That
thank
we
you.
have to
Just
review.
wasn't sure.
right.
Thank you.
All the, they review all of this because they work on preparing all the legal documents for the borrowing and the financing of it.
Okay,
So anytime we borrow money, it goes through them.
okay,
And with the state revolving fund, when the town borrows money, what we do is we include the cost of issuance in the borrowing. But because this is a state revolving fund, we can't do that. So we have to allocate this separately.
okay. Thank you.
Any other discussion or comments? All in favor of recommending Article 14?
Was there a motion made?
Yes.
Yes, I made it.
Sharon and Jamie. All in favor of recommending it, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Article 15.
I'll recommend that. I think they should fix the roof, and they definitely need a generator.
I think the breakdown was 30,000 and 30,000 and 7,000. Have a motion, to have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor of recommending, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Article 16.
Make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second, Jamie. Any discussion?
Is this one we need to recommend?
We're spending money.
It's money.
Appropriate the sum of 10,000.
Yeah, it's money.
Oh, I jumped ahead of you, I guess. I was reading 17. I'm sorry.
No.
I missed 16.
Okay.
Apologize.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, unanimous. 17 is
Bylaw change.
bylaw change, that's, we don't have to do anything. Article 18, 19, nothing. I think that's it for the special. Before we leave the special, any other questions or concerns on the special? None. We will continue on to the annual town meeting warrant. Draft 3. Yeah, draft. All right. This is special.
Would you like to use one?
No, that's right. I'll use my draft 2, and you can just correct me. Okay, skipping articles 1, 2, 3, go to Article 4. Do I have a motion to recommend on Article 4?
So moved.
I need a second.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor of recommending signify by saying aye.
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 I'll recuse myself.
Okay. No, that's all right.
Okay.
Because I got mine marked up, supposedly if it changes. On to 5.
So that's gonna be the budget, so the budget
So we have to
will
just wait for
place
that.
in there when.
Okay.
Finish.
And same with Article 6. We'll wait
6
on
is the
that.
water budget that's been put on hold.
Yep.
Article 7 is that companion article for the transfer for the overhead costs from the enterprise fund to the general fund. And then the revenue table that I don't have. And then Article 8 is a standard article, and so we'll have to take this up next week. The water board was meeting this week, tonight.
Right.
So it's on the warrant, it just hasn't been completed. And then we jump to the standard articles that run every year: assessors, harbor master, cemetery, and light department.
Okay. Do I have a motion to recommend Articles 9 through 12?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second. Any other discussion on those? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Article 13.
Am I missing a page? I've gone from 11, never mind. No, okay.
These are these revolving fund renewals on the 13.
Okay. And those are all the same from last year. No. Have a motion to recommend.
I'll make that motion.
Have a motion. Have a second.
I'll second it.
Have a second. Any discussion? All in favor of recommending signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Article 14. Yeah, this is new, right? This is the revolving thing for donations.
The selectmen would like to create a new revolving fund And it really, I think was spawned after the success of many of the 375th anniversary celebrations, especially the concerts, and Mr. Perry's here this evening, he was the chair of the 375th anniversary. It was his suggestion that we create this new revolving fund in which donations, and maybe some receipts or things from a variety of events and activities could be deposited and then used by the Board of Selectmen in Parks and Rec. However, the authorization will stay with the Selectmen if the Parks and Rec utilize this account. To continue to hold some of these events that were successful this past year. And then what we would do then is close out to, existing revolving funds that we have this fiscal year, which is this Parks and Recreation account, which has a 0 balance, and this 375th anniversary committee revolving fund that was a special purpose explicitly for the events. So we're achieving things under 2 articles, creating the new one, closing out the other one, and then transferring that balance.
But what's it to close out if they get a 0 balance though?
We wanna
No,
take it
from-
off the books in its entirety. That was a Parks and Rec Board of Selectmen account, and we did, and it could be used by either Parks and Rec or Board of Selectmen, whereas the new article under 14, requires Board of Selectmen authorization, which would just spend out of that, so it tightened up the language a little bit and transferred the 375th funds.
Okay, so,
I'll make a
Can I
motion.
ask another question?
Sure.
Was it necessary to tighten, I mean, was there any problems in how it was run before and that's why you're changing it?
Well, the Parks and Rec is really an advisory committee to the Board of Selectmen, so if they were drawing out and to alleviate some of the confusion, usually they would come to the selectmen anyway and say they would hold a special event. They don't often do that, but, this way, we're not getting bills in for this revolving fund, and maybe the selectmen have, funds in there and they're not knowing it's being expended out. So it's just to, tighten up the control on it. There was no issue or anything, it just, it made sense that it just be the Board of Selectmen that authorizes that. And they usually would do that anyway if there was some event on the common that they held.
Did you get a second?
oh, did I have a first?
I made a
I
motion,
thought you did.
Oh,
Who made it
okay.
first?
Yeah, Paul.
A second.
I'll second
then you ask a question.
Okay,
Yeah.
2 seconds, and.
I'll make a third.
Okay. Maybe we should vote on it, okay? All in favor of, we can go by numerical order if you want.
So is this,
Make it happen.
are we recommending 14 and 15?
Just 14
It's
right
14
now,
at the moment.
14.
right. Okay, we're up to 5, out of 6, in the 7th, okay.
Okay.
Motion passes, go on to 15. So,
I'll make a motion.
I'll second that.
okay. Any other discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Article 16. Okay, we have to have a question on this because we have the treasurer here, so we gotta make her stay worthwhile.
So basically, this is new legislation that was created in the Acts of 2014, which allows for the creation of a tax title revolving fund. Because the way it works now is there's a budget for tax title. And when we have certain procedures we have to follow, so when we do a tax taking, we put an ad in the Daily News. Depending on how many parcels we have, that could be $1,000, $1,500, up to $2,000. So it takes out a big chunk of that money. What then happens is we add that into the tax taking, so then when people pay that off, we recoup that. But before we didn't have a revolving fund, so that would just go back into the general fund. So that would leave us if we had cases that were in land court, or if we had to do another taking, that would leave us short. So frequently, what happens is we raise additional money for tax title on the recap. So the thought behind this is basically we can keep recycling that money instead of appropriating it at town meeting, spending it, having to raise more money on the recap. Basically, hopefully, once we get a balance, we can do away with that, raising on the recap.
Is there a cap to the amount, or?
It's the fees that we collect.
So it's like an in and out, and it should be close to zero, you're saying?
No, because
Or,
sometimes what happens is, it takes us a few years. We go
Okay.
forward, we get into land court, we have legal fees that we've expended, and then someone pays it off. The problem is with land court and tax title, we don't know how fast the land court is going to move forward on a case. So, we may have a year where we basically don't get anything done in land court, or we may have a year where we have 3 or 4 cases. We may have a year where someone pays off a big tax title, where we recoup those fees.
so it could go negative.
No. No, it
So if
can't-
you go
it
to
can't
land
go-
court,
It can't go negative because we have
There's-
money, we can only spend what's in our appropriation for tax title, and then a balance we have in this revolving account. We can't
Okay.
overspend.
so
The
we'll
only
say
thing
if you
we
go to
overs-
land court, they don't get paid until it's settled?
No,
Or so,
we,
or-
we pay to start proceedings in land court. It's basically the recouping of costs that go into this.
Okay.
So will there be initial funding to?
No. No, we have to recoup fees. So that's why we have a tax title line that we'll use. And probably this year, we will still have to raise that money on the recap. But going forward, hopefully we're recycling the same money in the tax taking process.
Okay, do I have a motion
So
to
moved.
recommend? Okay,
A second?
motion and second. Any other discussion? All those in favor of recommending signify by saying aye. Aye. And that's unanimous. Article 17. Let's see, did they change the wording on that too? Right, okay.
Make a motion that we accept Article 17.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Article 18.
Is that typical language? It says to appropriate 190,000, and then it breaks it down in 1, 2, and 3. Then it says or any other amount. It almost sounds like
That came from the bond council
could
once
be.
again. Our town council on the borrowing will go to the expertise of the bond council who's issuing and reviewing and drawing up the borrowing documents when they float these bonds out on the market. It is 190,000. I can strike it. I don't wanna tweak too much with what they write, but, I can,
In other words, and Debbie, if that.
that's how most towns do it. Most towns
Is it?
don't even have a dollar amount in their town meeting articles. They do that all in the form of motion. They're spending all the time, they're publishing their warrants and now putting the dollar amounts in there, and then they go to town meeting and they've worked on their motions and have them reviewed. And the bond council even wrote the motion for this article. That,
So if it would go at a higher amount, let's say it came up to
I'll just
200,000.
take out or any other amount.
Okay.
Because I understand what you're saying, and we certainly don't wanna.
Yeah, I would think they'd have to
lead
come
on.
back.
In other towns, this would be typical language, So we really spend a lot of time tightening up what we get from them without, interfering too much and have the developer.
Now, there is a breakdown of the 51,000, the 55,000,
Right.
and the 84,000. That's, I know it's not in your packet, but I have that. You know, it's basically things like $1,500 for a computer, $500 for a printer, 17,000 for a signed message board,
It's
which is
one.
the, right,
And the water department has got one in their budget also?
They took it out this
They-
year.
They took it out.
right. So if there are questions on any of that, we can go over that, should you want. Do I have a motion to accept Article 18?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Okay. Is there any discussion or anyone needs to see, we'll say like, you know, for the police body armor is 11,000, 9,000 for or no, 11,000 for firearms, body armor 9,000, fire radio repeaters 35,000. It's all kind of detailed. Any discussion or questions? Have a motion to accept. Have any other discussion?
Janet made the motion, I don't have a second.
I
Paul
seconded it.
seconded.
And that's with striking that phrase out, right?
Yeah,
Gary?
okay, yes,
Right.
or any other remarks.
All in favor of recommending, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Now, Article 19.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of recommending, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Article 20. Let's see. Does that really involve us?
I don't think so. No.
No. Scratch Finance Committee. Okay, 21 is
It's not.
not.
All right, no.
So we're lowering the form.
22.
This is the one that I think all towns have to do, right? And they're
Right.
always way
Yeah.
behind.
Right.
So they throw some money into it, it's like millions of dollars or something, so. I'll make a motion that we accept Article 22.
Okay,
I'll
have a
second
motion. Second. Any discussion on it? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Article 23. This is the stabilization fund.
I'll recommend Article 23.
All right.
I'll
Have
second.
a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Unanimous.
Joe, I saw in the paper they're not going to do the stadium this time.
The school committee did not vote to do the stadium at this time. The reason that Salisbury has a override for their police station, and they would not put on a second override, and they're planning to do a fall meeting. And I'm not sure what Newbury is planning, So we submitted question number 1 to be voted on at our town meeting this year, without really having the vote from the school committee to approve a payment for the stadium. And that if they vote to do the stadium in August, we would have 60 days from the time of that vote to have an election. So if we do it in advance, we might be able to, we will either vote it down if one town votes it down, then there will not be a stadium renovation. If we do pass it, then we will have already had the election and we don't have to worry about the 60-day rule.
So we actually need a special town meeting to get it done.
Right.
Yeah.
We would still have to pass it
Mhm,
at a special town meeting in the fall.
Okay.
So that's the last, the
Right,
last
sorry, yeah.
article is the
The-
ballot.
the question.
It's like we voted to put that ballot question on.
So between now and when the project gets approved by all these towns, these costs may change, correct?
Well, the thought is that they were very close to going out to bid. So the thought is that they will approve this, the school committee will approve to borrow money to do the stadium project in August. And then the towns have 60 days to approve it or disapprove it. And normally, the way it works is you need 2 yeses. You need a yes at, if you're doing an override. You need a yes at the polls, you need a yes at town meeting. Because we don't have an election scheduled for the fall for an override, we checked with bond counsel and our financial advisors and said, can we do the money part first to be followed by the question at town meeting? So basically, what we're doing is we're authorizing this would vote to authorize the override for the stadium project. Then, once the school committee approves the debt, we would have to have a fall town meeting where the town meeting would approve whether or not to fund that. So, there's not a time limit that says you have to, if you approve the override first, there's not a time limit when it goes away. It says within a reasonable time. Debbie's spoken with the DOR, and we can do it this way. And it'll save the town the cost of having an election, and also do it at a time when the voters and the townspeople expect an override.
So why is it, well, maybe because it's not our town, I was gonna ask why it wouldn't be part of a debt exclusion as opposed to an override. Is it because it's not really debt for the town of Raleigh, it's debt shared by 3 towns, and that's why it comes under?
It's Triton's debt,
Right,
and we
okay.
are assessed.
Right, all right.
So it's to pay our assessment, our share of the assessment.
Okay.
But with
If
this
a-
approach, the money amount, where everyone's confident that that money amount will hold?
I got those numbers from Triton and from the financial advisors. Our financial advisor is First Southwest, who is also the financial advisor to Triton, and also the financial advisor to Newbury,
Yeah.
and also Salisbury. So the different account people that deal with those came up with these numbers, and they're fairly confident.
Okay, it just seems like every project that gets delayed, the costs end up going up, which is what's happened to this project anyway.
Absolutely.
One of the things that Triton had said before, evidently Carlisle has done this same type of project, and they put their bid out this past winter, fall, and they got a pretty good break on it as far as what the estimate was. So part of it was Salisbury didn't want to double up on the overrides, but the other part was that Triton thought they could kind of tie on to that theory, that if they do it in the fall, put it out to bid, then the price may not be as bad or as high, because contractors are looking for work in the wintertime. And I think they're trying to hang their hat on that also, so it could very well go down, based on their theory.
Okay.
I just wanted to say one thing. We talked about the bond council earlier and how they prepare, and they actually had prepared a ballot question that didn't have any dollars in it. And we went back and said that doesn't fly in Rowley. We can't have a debt exclusion override without the dollar amount. So, and Karen purposely went back and explained that to them, and we got this revised version that does put that in there, because, you know, that's an open-ended situation. But that's how it's written in most towns, but that's how we came up with that.
There's been quite a bit of discussion at the district communications meetings that Peter and Dennis have been
Yep.
at. And that where I'm somewhat confident that they can come in with a better price.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussions on the
And
question?
I just have one more question. In the verbiage where it says not to exceed a total of 3,200,000, there's a question mark next to it?
Yeah, that's how they gave it to me.
Okay. Okay, it was a little big.
They're cutting
Yeah.
with their ass.
The question mark, that's the question, and then they make the statement. That's what the because we said.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it starts out with
Oh,
You're asking the
okay.
question. Okay.
Okay.
It's supposed to be a question, and the next
Okay.
one is a sentence, but it
Okay.
doesn't have a period, sorry.
And what is the duration on the bond, and
They're talking 20 years.
20 years.
And how much is
And
it on the tax bill?
It's pretty, the town accountant figured that, you know, on the average tax bill, it's about $5. And our assessment would be roughly
90.
70,000, between 70 and 75,000 a year, because when they issue capital, it varies according to enrollment. So the principal and interest payments would be, you know,
They will fluctuate.
70 to
Right.
75 per year.
so can any of that information be added?
No, not on a ballot question.
Okay.
I would also add to that, that the town manager from Salisbury, Mr. Arrington,
Harrington.
has gotten an agreement from Triton that based on revenues, they do plan on making money on renting out the fields and everything, and that if, depending upon how they work out the agreement, that if they do take in enough revenue, they will reduce the cost
assessment,
to
yeah.
the individual towns.
Okay.
There will be more information, I think, Triton has a presentation, a media presentation, and, you know, there'll definitely be more information coming
Right.
out on this. It was just kind of a, the stadium project isn't happening, and we were under a deadline for the warrant.
Yeah, we didn't really get any information, and the school committee, in fact, never discussed this, did they, Joe?
No.
It's never been discussed by the school
No.
committee, that's why we've been chasing them to find out. And we did let them know, we have an election budget that was already approved, submitted by the town clerk, in the town budget. And it costs about a
Five.
little over $5,000 to hold an election.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter if there's one question or not. So that you're adding, you know, for $5,000, we have town departments here that don't even have $5,000 to operate in a whole year in their expense budget.
Right.
It's a huge cost. And we have this, we can do it now for nothing. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
we'll have to have a town meeting in the fall, we'll be bound by that, whether or not we have anything that needs to be checked on or addressed, maybe.
I just hope that somebody at Triton gets information out to the voters, because if, without information, they're gonna just say they read in the paper, it's not happening.
We're counting on that.
Yeah.
And we got an agreement from Superintendent Farmer and from the Assistant Superintendent Forget that they will get the word out to the Triton Middle School, High School, and the Pine Grove School for the Rowley voters.
Having had a granddaughter that was very, very active in track and know how bad it's been, we need it, we really do.
We do. It's been condemned so that
Yeah.
they can't have the graduation or any football, any programs there.
Yeah,
I
we
have
really
a
need it.
problem, like, way, I don't know if you have to be so, alluding as far as not expending, because the average taxpayer doesn't know what each town is $1.1 million. They don't know, as what you explained, and you said for the average household, it's about a $5, increase in the tax bill. And they look at the number and they say, wow, oh my God, that's a lot of money, when relatively speaking, it isn't, but if they look at this, how is the average taxpayer, supposed to figure that out?
Well, there's going to be an
You know,
information campaign. I would assume that there is a stadium committee that exists someplace, because they've been raising money for the past 3 or 4 years for this. So it has to be an information campaign. I know we have on the 27th, we have an informational session upstairs, and I would assume that there'll be more information at the selectmen's meetings. I mean, the word has to get out there, and I'm hoping that,
We just can't use any public resources
Right.
endorsing a ballot question. That's against the state campaign and political finance laws. State
Keep on
ethics.
looking at me.
I didn't even work at the state, so we just follow what the state says.
Well, that's like when we went for the fire truck, that the fire association was able to put signs and things out because that wasn't using town funds.
right, so I assume there's a stadium
Committee
committee
that can-
someplace that, will give people who want to support this signs to put in their yards and information. We can put out the information, but, we need people
Yeah.
to support this.
Yeah, I actually made a call to the state ethics, because I am in favor of the stadium renovation project, and I would like to see it happen, and I'd like to, I have a PowerPoint presentation that was produced by Brian Forget.
Okay.
And I was gonna sit in the library, and I could sit there and guard my laptop, but I couldn't say anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they have an excellent presentation that was produced by the audio
The
department.
media department.
Media department at Triton.
Is it on their website?
On YouTube, is it?
It was on as an episode of the VTV. What they did was they presented it as if it was going to happen in April. They're revising it to change the time frame, and then we should have that available.
Okay.
And, I would like that shown to everybody at every opportunity, because I support this.
Yeah, we'll have to get the word out about that.
Yeah, I
Right.
mean, if it could be
favor.
broadcast on the rally,
Oh, definitely,
RCM, and
definitely.
as well as,
Newspapers, too. Because like Peter said, I mean, you see the number 1.1 million, and
Right.
you say, whoa, that's a lot of money. But if you say, what's the average house or property in Raleigh? Let's say 400,000, just to round it out. You say if that is going to just cost about $5 more a year, people can relate a lot more to $5 than 1.1 million.
Right, and it's all part of the.
And do it to the other two towns too.
Right,
to
it's all part of
communicate
the
that.
communication that
Yeah.
needs to get out.
but in this article, you cannot put the duration of the bond?
Well, this
They
is
haven't
a-
voted on anything
Yeah,
yet.
this is a ballot question.
officially.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have a town meeting to discuss it.
So they're not saying that they will do it in 20 years, like they put a dollar amount, they can't put parameters around their length of borrowing either? Because I think, to the point of educating people, if you knew it was 20 years, then, not that you know exactly what that would be, but you have to understand it's
The numbers
not
are
5
based
years.
on the 20-year borrowing. They haven't authorized anything yet.
Yeah, the communication committee, which is part of the school committee and the surrounding towns, all said we wanted 20 years. So I'm sure that's gonna go back, when the school committee decides to vote, that would be part of their vote, that would be
Right.
20-year.
But because they haven't formally taken a
Yep.
vote. And they won't take a vote until at least August. But unlike the school budget too, that the school budget only has to be approved by 2 out of the 3 towns to be approved. This has to be approved
3.
by all
All
3
three
towns.
towns, yeah.
If any one town votes it down, it's not going to happen.
So
But-
what's happening is, right now, we're working with the knowledge that we have.
Right.
If something changed, we would have the opportunity in the article at town meeting to say, well, this isn't what you told us. So we have the opportunity to vote it down at town meeting, should something
Drastically change, yeah.
drastically that, or, you know, if they say, oh, well, you know, we're gonna borrow it for 5 years and your assessment's gonna be, you know, some crazy number. We still need both of those yeses to move
Right.
forward.
My point is, historically, more people vote than go to the town meeting.
Correct.
So any information that could be added here, if you could say it's expected to be a 20-year bond, it may help the voter. And I understand communication and all that, but there are just people that vote.
I mean, I don't
Read
know
that,
what
so
the
I don't know.
rules are with regard to ballot questions and explanatory notes,
Right.
On a ballot,
but,
that's
you
a
know, if we
different-
can have more information,
Yeah.
definitely, we want as much information out to people as we can, but, I mean, that's a town clerk.
You typically can't spend any government money to promote the
Right, but I'm
motion.
I'm not
thinking
promoting it, just,
Promote.
an
Clarifying
explanatory
it,
note
yeah.
on the
Yeah, we
ballot.
do that with the town.
I know what they talked about the marijuana thing, they had a big, long
That's an
thing
article.
about,
This is a
this an
ballot
article,
question.
so.
I don't have an answer, it's never been done since I've been here, on any override for any,
okay,
anything.
I'm not, I just,
Yeah.
even, I understand you can't put
I
an
know, you're looking
explanation,
for an
just,
explanatory note, and I've
not
never
even
seen
the
it.
explanatory note, just what would the duration be for the borrowing? If that is definite, can that be added?
To the question.
Yes. Or
To the,
Just at the
somehow
end, just right
added-
for 20
It's-
years.
It's not definite because they haven't voted it.
but they don't have, I
Right.
mean, the amount is not to exceed, so we know that it's,
I would be a little leery of adding those assumptions onto something
Right.
that, first of all, the school committee hasn't even discussed.
okay.
I don't know,
Well, they did discuss
I-
it'll be 20 years, you know. that
not the
stuff.
school committee, the
No.
district
Okay, the
communication
district
committee, which is
communication.
not a policy-setting board, and according to the Triton Agreement, Jim and Mary read this yesterday, they just exchange information. They don't make any decisions, they just exchange.
But all the
But they
towns
didn't-
did,
they didn't
but all the
disagree,
towns
though.
sat there and said that we want
They-
20 years,
Yeah,
so.
they didn't disagree
So
with me.
we're
on
working
that.
off that, but nothing that by the official board, that's the only concern. And we know that, we're trying to get in based on what our knowledge is of what they plan to do.
And you can't frame it just like that.
I'm
that's-
not, the
oh.
bond council wrote the
Yeah.
question, we went back and put the numbers in. We would have to go back again, the selectmen already voted to put it on as it is in this form, and the final wording has to be, submitted to the
Yeah.
town clerk on April 6th. So I'm not sure at this point if it can be added on 20 years.
Right,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I've never
Are
seen it on
are
any
saying
debt
a,
exclusion.
instead of which bond shall not exceed, which proposed 20-year bond shall not exceed.
It's not, but
Right.
it's not, you don't wanna,
It isn't
No,
proposed.
I'm
It's
just,
not proposed.
it isn't
Well-
proposed yet.
And it's
All
not-
I understand
Yeah.
If you go to
that
the
you just
statute-
don't have the facts,
All right.
and you can't do anything more than that. I just trying to find ways to
Yep.
make it more palatable for the voter who doesn't come to town meeting and isn't gonna,
But we have never done that for any other question,
Okay.
so then there bears the question of why is that one being treated differently? To give people something, if you go to the statute where you find the form of vote in Mass General laws for the overrides, the varies, the debt exclusion, the general override, it's usually very vanilla, there's not much in there. And then when we went back and put the dollars in on the debt exclusion, we've tinkered, I think, enough legally that we wanna do with a ballot question. That's my opinion, but
We've
it
got a
would be up
count,
to the selectmen to change what's already on there.
we've got a count on Triton to come through with the, from the 3 schools to get the word out.
okay.
all right, let's move on. Next meeting date is April 7th at 7:15. But also, Debbie, you're talking about a joint meeting on,
Yes, so if you flip the page over, they added,
flip the page.
the informational hearing. Just turn it over, look on everybody's package.
Yeah, I saw it once.
This one says, revised March 30th. selectmen last night decided to have, hold the informational hearing on the warrant.
Oh, okay.
They've been doing that for the past
April
several years.
27th.
Just a less formal setting for people to ask questions, outside the, environment of town meeting, which is a lot more formal, to have the department heads present in case there's any questions about any of the articles. And then this certain, in one presentation that we're planning on it is to have the consultants from the rate study, Peter and Howard, come and go over the rate study during this informational hearing as part of the water department discussion. And then we can certainly have discussion about what the last article of the annual town meeting, which is the ballot, would be a question, maybe to address some of the things that have been brought up this evening on that Triton Stadium project.
Okay, any problem with next Tuesday at 7:15? I will not be here, so,
You won't be here?
no, I will be in Maryland. That being it,
You'll be
have a-
around?
Huh?
You'll be around?
I'll be around.
You're the vice chairman, right?
Yeah, it's my daughter's birthday.
have a motion to adjourn?
Huh?
Jerry?
Yes.
Paul, have a second?
Aye.
Okay, have a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you very much for being here and watching.
I'll come in after work on Tuesday and check with you on anything I need to know before the meeting. Okay.
I'll work with Larry on the agenda before the meeting, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
It's really,
The water department.